Hello friends, I'm Vivek, Atrey, and I'm going to talk about empathy. The theme of today also includes inclusivity, and empathy means we don't only think about ourselves, we also think about others. Now others in our lives, they are our immediate circle, our friends, family, and others in our lives who are not exactly like us. They may not be as privileged as us. They may be from very different backgrounds, economically, socially, culturally. Their mindset, their upbringing, their historic reasons may be different from ours. Can we widen the thoughts that we have and try to think of situations like other people? So can I, as they say, put myself in the shoes of someone else and then understand a situation? What happens to most of us is that because we are human, we are self-centered. So we keep thinking about perspectives from our own viewpoint. If you climb to the top of a mountain, you have a view. If you're below the mountain, you have another view. If you're on top of a building or the bottom floor of a building, it's a different perspective. Human beings exist in every situation. There's a person living in a jungle who grew up with the animals. We remember the story of Tarzan, the man who lived in the jungle with the apes. He grew up in the jungles, never used gadgets, never had a laptop, never saw air conditioning. He lived on trees. There is a story of a tiger cub who was with the sheep, and he was brought up along with the sheep, and he thought that he too is a sheep. And until that tiger cub saw his reflection in the water pond, he thought he's a sheep. And he would make noises like sheep. But when he realized he is a tiger, then his personality changed. Empathy is about understanding situations from others' viewpoint, from those who are not as lucky as us. So if you have a maid, you have a helper in the office, you have somebody who's pulling the rickshaw. If I, who is using that rickshaw or the taxi, or I'm the employer of the maid or the servant, I am able to talk to this person with kindness, with some kind of care, ask about their children, about their neighbors, about their jobs, about the electricity in their house or their village, and not only talk about myself. In today's era, we are a little spoiled. Let's admit it. Anybody who's delivering a TEDx talk or attending a TEDx talk or watching a TEDx talk also nowadays is a little spoiled. There could be people who have never heard of smartphones, even today in this world. They may be tribals, they may be back of beyond, they may be very poor, and they can't afford one. Can we somehow rise above and raise the perspective that we have to include all those who are not as lucky as us? What does it mean to raise the level of our perspective? If I'm sitting on a chair in an auditorium, I can probably see the stage and whatever's happening on the stage. I can't see the person sitting 6 rows behind because I'm facing this way. That person also has a perspective. The person sitting on the balcony has another perspective. So if I can raise the level of my consciousness, which is the way I think, then I have a larger, broader perspective of life. When I'm in the middle of something, I'm teaching a class or I'm attending a class. I'm in the middle of that, I'm in the thick of it. But can I always remember that I have to be a good human being, I have to care for humanity, I will be out of this class after a while, and there's some other life going on. So while being in the minute, in the minutest of detail, I still should have a broader perspective. And if we talk of inclusivity, what does it mean? If you talk of parity of gender, women today are finding their own feet, they're finding their own jobs, they're finding their own way up the ladder of success. Much more numbers, many more numbers of women are now succeeding in various fields. 100 years ago, even in a country like India, we did not have such parity. You'd be surprised to know that even in the United States, women were not allowed to vote till a few decades ago. One of the oldest democracies in the world did not allow women to vote. Even today, we have to have reservation for women in parliament, in panchayats, in other places. So if we talk of inclusivity without including 50% of the population of the world in the success that matters, then it's not complete. If today even a girl has to think about leaving a house, and she has to worry about who might be on the road, and how will she walk from here to the bus stop and get onto the bus, and then what will happen when she gets off the bus. So if that girl is still feeling unsafe, then somehow that inclusivity is not working. So the government, the people, the system, and society have to pool their efforts together so that people feel safe, wanted, included in all kinds of progress. Progress which is unfair to some sections of society is also not progress. So if we are constructing colonies after colonies and buildings after buildings, and we are displacing the poor and not giving them alternative accommodation, then we have no empathy for them. So mad, bizarre progress without including everybody in that design, in that plan, is not progress. We've heard of agitations, the Chipko movement to save the trees. We've heard of agitations which were to save the environment and the ecosystem from the progress of the Narmada Dam. We've heard many other examples. Let's take the example of a poorish, let's say underprivileged family, less economically well off, and there's a girl called Bindu in that family. Bindu in Kota in Rajasthan. Kota is also famous for lots of teaching places and people preparing for IITs and even getting depressed, unfortunately. But let's say Bindu is a poor girl who's working with her mother in a labor kind of role. A building is being constructed. And this girl is about uneducated, about 16 years old. She started working with her mom. And she's struggling, working hard, malnourished. Iron levels, nutrition levels are not sufficient. 45 degrees heat. Bindu is living a life which is a struggle. And you compare that to someone living in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore or Chandigarh who has Blinkit, Zomato, Swiggy, any app which delivers within 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 9 minutes, whatever it is. There is disparity. The world is not progressing at the same time. And for India, we say India lives in many centuries at the same time. So I've been in the civil services. In the civil services, one of the roles of an administrator is to visit the area, the villages, the slums, the various colonies. So as an administrator, I would go one village to another village, let's say 5 villages in one day, neighboring villages. You go to one village, the Sarpanch Sahab is there. You suddenly realize that India is not the same here as it is in our very comfortable places in a city. And you go to that village and the Sarpanch will talk about various problems which you never heard of. There's a problem of a drain, a nala, and that nala is being encroached upon by somebody. He's constructing something on that, and therefore the water channel is being stopped, and therefore it creates problems in the neighborhood. We never heard of it. And here, the SDM or the officer like I was, I have to go and understand these problems and try to sort them out. Now the civil services gives you that perspective. Everybody who may not get that perspective, you're a chartered accountant working in a company, or you're in a manufacturing company or an IT company, you never went there. But if we widen our horizon, raise the level of our consciousness, try to understand societies and villages and perspectives and ways of living which are not ours, then we live a more fulfilling life. So next time you see someone begging, the next time you see someone who's sitting on the road selling, what do people do on the street when they're selling something? The seasonal fruit, very small basket, something like jamun, which is not even known to the modern kids today. And they're selling jamun on the roadside. And how much do they make? So I often give the example of a Golgappa man. Golgappa wala who stands in a city in North India, let's say. He's got a table, he's got a box, he's got a jar. His cost of that Golgappa plate is quite low because he caters to the lower income of society. And this Golgappa man is always peppy and happy. I cross him many times in my car. But this person who is not very well off has a cheerful outlook to life. But I cross him, I never stop my car there to buy his Golgappas. Because I would prefer being in an air-conditioned environment with mineral water in my Golgappas. Which doesn't taste that good, by the way. What is happening to him? He's trying to make a living. He's trying to make two ends meet. He's trying to live a decent life. I have to be empathetic to this person. So I notice one particular Golgappa man and he's always smiling. So I wonder, why is he smiling so much? He's not as rich as the richest 5 people in the world, or even as the richest 5 million people in the world. And he's not got anything much going for him. It's something within that is he's winning the battle of. So it's perhaps our attitude needs to change. If I'm always thinking about myself and not of others, then my attitude is very self-centric. And what is ego? If you become a little spiritual, any religion that you follow, you will understand that the ego is the opponent of life. Our own ego is the one that we have to fight. Because the real self is not egoistic. And the real self is pure. The soul is pure. And we are the soul. And we should understand that the soul, the purity of the soul, is being clouded by the delusion of the world. So I think I'm very powerful. I think I'm very rich. I think I'm very famous. And I think I've got millions of likes on social media, followers. That is what I'm living for. And I want to buy another car. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about normal people who are on the bandwagon, on the treadmill. The rat race, as they say. So can I pause and think that while this journey is on, can I be helpful to others? Or am I going to retire and then I'll start becoming a philanthropist and charitable activities and things like that? At the age of 15, there are kids today, there are teenagers who are now very helpful to animals, for example. My own children, my 2 daughters, they're very helpful to animals. Empathy to animals. But then we tell them also be empathetic to human beings. Very important to be empathetic to all beings. Nobody cares for the animals. It's very good that these children are doing that. But to look after people who are not as lucky as you is perhaps the goal of life. And if I am fighting my own ego, I need to win that battle. And therefore, in conclusion, I'll only say 2 things. Number 1, we need to live at the top of the tree, not at the bottom of the tree. Because the top of the tree is where the air is fresh, the water is pure, dewdrops are falling. A bird which lives at the top of the tree has a good view, a good perspective of life, understands life. A human being who raises the level of thoughts, consciousness, mindset, and doesn't remain narrow-minded and intolerant of others is a human being who's living a top-view life, an empathetic life. Secondly, nobody's perfect, but we can all improve. We can get incrementally better. We know a very famous company which has an iPhone 16 point something. Which version are we on? Which is your version now? Are you version 8, 9, 10, 16 of yourself? So let's try and improve our versions and improve our empathy for others and include others in our success. Thank you very much.